Hi, this video is going to talk about 10 mistakes you should avoid when you're translating documents for USCIS or the Immigration Court. At the very end, I'll give you a bonus tip about what you can do when you really can't decipher what the document says. If there's a word that you can't read because of poor scanning, I'll talk about that at the end. A lot of people know that if you're sending a document, never send an original. If you're sending a copy of a document to immigration and it's not in English, it needs to be translated. There's exceptions to that if you're dealing with consulates, but we're talking about a straight marriage case where somebody entered with a visa, a few years later they found Mr. or Mrs. Wonderful, they got married, and now, let's say she's the U.S. citizen, he's the foreigner, the immigrant, and I didn't call him alien, although I always call people aliens because I've been doing this for so long. That's the legal term. I'm sorry, I know it sounds horrible, but okay. Maybe I'll cut that part. But anyway, I'm talking about where you're going to file the I-130 and the 485 here, and you need documents that have to be translated, okay? So people know that you have to send a copy of the original and a copy of the translation. A lot of people don't realize you need a certificate of translation. And another thing that a lot of people don't know is that you don't have to pay some fancy translating service to do this. I happened to I was Googling this. I was researching for this video, and I Googled, who can translate documents just to see what would pop up. And sure enough, the very first post that was put up there on Google was from a company that would translate your documents for $27.99 a page, which seems like an odd amount of money, but okay. Look, if you don't want to do the translating yourself, that's fine. And if it's only a one-page document, that's $30. Might be worth it. You don't have to worry about it, right? However, if you're applying for asylum, let's say, and you've prepared a 10-page affidavit that tells your story and why you think you deserve asylum, well, now we're looking at about $300. So a lot of times people decide they're going to translate this themselves, or they're going to have a friend do it. Don't use a notario. You're going to hear me say that 100 times. Don't use notaries. Big mistake, in my ever so humble opinion. So let's say you're going to do this yourself. Can you translate your own birth certificate? Say you were born abroad, but you grew up here. Can you translate your husband's birth certificate? Technically, yes. Yes, you can. However, I would strongly urge that you have someone else who's fluent in both languages compare the original document with the translation that you did and make sure that it's the same. Make sure that it's the same, that it's accurate, that it's true, and then have that person sign the certification of translation. Because I believe, could be mistaken, but I believe that you are not permitted to sign the certification of translation for your own birth certificate. I don't think so. For your husband's, clear conflicts of interest. So I don't think you can do that. Have somebody else sign off on the certification. But please do yourself a favor. Have them actually take 5 minutes to sit down and review it. Don't just give them a piece of paper and say, "Here's, just sign this, will you?" And that's, "Oh, yeah, sure." Anyway, that certification, I'm going to try and put it up. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet on YouTube. I'm going to see if I can put a copy of my certificate of translation that I use. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. In fact, you could Google it yourself. It needs the name, address, and phone number of the translator. Does not need to be notarized. It basically says that they're competent to translate from X language into English, and that the translation is complete and accurate to the best of their abilities or the best of their knowledge. So that's what the certification of translation says. So now let's get into some of these mistakes, right? Well, number one, not including the certification statement. I'm not going to... You have to have it, because if you don't, they might accept your case, but then they're going to send you on a good day, they'd send you an RFE, which is a request for evidence, on a good date. With this administration, there's a lot of rumors that he's doing everything that he can to reject cases. But he's rejecting things without RFEs, which is really not fair, because what they've done, you know how much this stuff costs, right? I mean, forget the legal fees. I'm talking about the filing fees. You know, that's a lot of money. You're going to reject the whole thing and make them have to refile because you don't get your money back. So make sure you have the certification attached. Number two, using Google Translate or freetranslation.com or something like that. Look, if you don't know how to translate this yourself, don't do it. Find somebody else who can. Google Translate and freetranslation.com. They don't understand cultural differences. They don't understand nuance. They certainly don't understand legal terminology. Find somebody else who can do it, because, I mean, a birth certificate basically is kind of simple, but how about a divorce decree? How about a divorce agreement, which can be 6 pages long? I mean, if you don't know how to translate it, don't try and do it through Google. My ever so humble opinion. Problem number 3, mistake number 3, translating just part of the document, okay? USCIS requires a complete translation. That means everything. That means all the seals, all the stamps, every single word needs to be translated, okay? Leaving out anything like handwritten notes that are on the side, stamps, this can jeopardize, it can delay your case, it can jeopardize your application, because they're going to say, well, this wasn't properly done, or worse, this wasn't properly done on purpose, intimating that you were purposely trying to misrepresent things in this translation. So everything has to be sent, not just a little bit. Like sometimes people will say, well, it's a birth certificate. We're going to do like an extract of the birth certificate. Just his name, his place of birth, his date of birth. And maybe include the parents. That's it. There's the translation. No. And you're going to see why. Oh, that's the very next one. Number 4, using non-professional or unqualified translators. So it seems convenient. Let's say your husband has a friend who speaks both English and whatever his language is, and he's going to help you out. Or there's some notario in the neighborhood, some notary guy. Believe me, every ethnic group's got them. These are people who practice law without a license. Anyway, so they do the translation. Have it be the friend, have it be somebody that you've paid, $50 to do it. You can't tell the difference because you don't understand or you can't read that language, so you think it's good, right? Now, USCIS expects professional level accuracy, okay? They don't want to hear, oh, I'm sorry, that was a friend did that. They don't want to hear that, okay? You're expected to present documents professionally. This is screwed up, you've got a problem. At the very least, you've got an RFE coming your way. Not preserving the original format. Okay, I've sort of touched on this, but it's so important. It's so important. You have to make the translation look like the original. Okay? That means all those little numbers up in the corner, you got to write them down. You don't know what they mean, but you got to write them down. And anything that's over here on the left, on the margin, you have to write it down. Let's look at it this way. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say the big day has arrived and you and your husband are going to go have your interview. The adjudicator swears you in that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And then they say, give me your passport, give me all your original documents. And what they're doing, it depends on the adjudicator, because different people do things differently. But generally speaking, they flip through the file, because they already have photocopies of his original birth certificate, the original marriage certificate, your naturalization certificate, or your U.S. citizen birth certificate. They have copies. They want to look and check that the original that you've brought in looks like the copy. That's important. So let's say it does. Great. Check it off. They check down in the bottom of the copy that they've seen the original, right? Then they get to the translation. They look at the English translation. Looks good. The birth certificate, let's say. Looks good. Has the date of birth, has the name, has the place. Great. Then they go to compare it with the original document. And if things don't jive, now they're a little confused. They're not sure. I mean, like, one of the things I would do is look at those silly little numbers up in the corner. Are they on the translation? Because if they're not, then what is this a translation of? You don't know. The adjudicator, they might not speak Russian or Korean or Arabic or whatever this is in. They want to see numbers, things that look the same on this document as it does on this document. And they should be in the same place. So, anyway, when it comes to an interview, it depends on who you get. Sometimes you get people who are super easygoing. They've been doing this for years and years and years. They think positively about you. They want to help you out. Sometimes you get somebody that just had a big fight with his wife and he's pissed off. Or sometimes you get I had some guy that he was always so nice to me. And then we went in this one day, oh my God, he was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. For no reason whatsoever. He attacks my client, who was only like a 21, 22-year-old kid. And when I tried to say something like, is there an issue? I'm not going to say his name. Is there an issue, officer? And he turned to me, he says, I'm not speaking to you. I'm like, the frig? What was that? So, and I knew this was a very clean case. So sure enough, it gets approved. And I wouldn't even look at him. I was so pissed off. Because we had known each other for years, this guy. What the hell? The next day, I have another immigration marriage case. This one I'm not so sure about. But who do we get? The same damn officer. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. So, we go in. He swears the couple in. Sit down. I would sit behind the couple. And he says, let me see your documents. Then let me see what you have for supporting evidence that this is a valid marriage, which is a lease and bank accounts and taxes together and stuff. And he flips through these things, checks them off. This is back in the day when they still stamp stuff. Takes out his red stamper and in the passport stamps approved. I was like, what? I mean, I'm not kidding. We were there like 5 minutes. I'm like, what? And I looked at him, and he's looking at me, and he kind of nodded. I said, thank you. He says, you're welcome. It's like, what the frig, right? Depends on who you get. Okay? Sometimes they're not out to get you, but maybe this could be his very first case, or he's only had a couple of cases. He's only had a couple cases under his belt, and he's still crossing his T's and dotting his I's, or like this particular adjudicator had a very, very long. Apparently, what happened was he had a very long interview with somebody who turned out 90% of what this immigrant had said was bullshit. And he had to pick through, and it just took a long time, and he was pissed. And, it's got to be tough because, look, there's a lot of people walking into that immigration office lying through their teeth. So, just saying, don't give them any reason to get annoyed with you because this translation isn't done right. Okay, let me see. I'm really talking too long. Here we go. Number 6, improper. Did I do number 5? Not preserving the original format. Number 6, improper names or place translations. You can't call Sao Paulo, Brazil, St. Paul, Brazil. Okay? You can't say that somebody's name is Juan Garcia. Strike that. You can't say that his name is John Garcia when his name is Juan Garcia. You're not supposed to be translating his name's Juan Arturo. You're not supposed to change it into John Arthur. Okay? That stuff's got to stay the same. Same thing with names of places. Those things have to remain the same. Don't translate the name into an English name. Even if he uses the English name. There will come a time when he becomes a U.S. citizen if he wants to change that name. But in the beginning, just leave it alone. This is similar to what I was just talking about. It's number 7, leaving out seals, logos, or watermarks. That's what I'm talking about. Everything has to look the same. But what do? You have a seal, right? There's some kind of a seal at the bottom. The seal of vital statistics or whatever department gave you this. Well, what I do is I just put in parentheses, seal, and parentheses. And if the seal is in the middle, like the bottom middle of the document, that's where I put it. Parentheses, seal, and paren. If it's on the left, I put it on the left. If it's on the right, I put it on the right. Okay? And again, it's the same idea. It has to look the same. So if it's got seals or stamps or something, you have to include them. And I'll tell you what, I actually include what it says around it, just so that you know, but I'm a little neurotic. Number 8, misinterpreting legal or technical terms. Again, we talked about this with Google and freetranslation.com. Legal documents often contain very specialized terminology, like divorce decrees or rental agreements, right? Let's say the two of you had lived back in the home country for a year together, and you had a rental document from back then. That would be excellent proof, actually. But it's all in Spanish, or it's all in Korean, or it's all in whatever. You have to translate it. And we know that any kind of contracts are often going to have lots of legalese in them. If you don't know what it says, don't guess. Find somebody. You have the internet at your fingertips. You've got all these. I'm sure you young whippersnappers don't use Facebook, but if you have questions, there's certainly places that you can go to ask people. Better yet, hire an attorney. Let the attorney worry about it. This I mentioned too. Why am I just jumping over all these things? Number 9, forgetting to translate handwritten text. Now, you're like, handwritten text? There's no handwritten text. There's a signature, maybe. Actually, not true. A lot of times with marriages, to be able to prove a divorce, let's say your husband was married before and then he got divorced, the way they prove, I think this is Costa Rica, maybe Guatemala, I forget. But the way they do it is that they have on the marriage certificate, along the margin, they'll have, divorced on such and such a date at such and such a place. So don't forget the margins. Anything that's handwritten someplace. By the way, if your client, no. If you or your husband's parents or somebody wrote on this document, let's say his sister back home got the document and mom was looking at it and mom's like, that birthplace isn't right. That's not the right place. And she crosses out the right place and handwrites the correct location where her son was born. Not good. Okay? That's not going to fly. Okay? That's going to be seen as clear fraud. So, mom, maybe if dad's still alive, has to go and talk to somebody about changing this birth certificate. And I don't mean paying somebody, $60 to change the birth certificate. I mean, do what they have to do to change the birth certificate so it's accurate. Trust me, you want it to be accurate. I know it sounds like a pain in the ass. I get it. But you're only going to get worse and worse and worse. You want to have everything as correct as you can possibly have from the beginning. Because if you think, well, I'll fix it later, that's not a good idea. Not going to give you another war story because I'm forgetting what I'm doing here. Submitting poor quality scans. This is the last one. Submitting poor quality scans or illegible copies. Well, I get a lot of people who send me stuff. It drives me nuts. They send it to my phone. At least send it to me in an email. But they've taken a picture on their phone. Half of it is shadowed out because it's like you could see the silhouette of the phone on the document. You can't read it. Well, I'm not submitting this to immigration. This is not happening because it's illegible. And furthermore, how am I supposed to translate it if I can't even read it? So do the best. Just if you don't have a printer, go over to, Quick Copies or Staples or Office Max. I don't even know what is still open now. Or even the public library. Go to the public library because they almost always have copy machines. I make a copy of it, like a real honest to God, like 1990 type of copy. Make a copy of it so that it's legible. Now, the last thing I was going to say, it's kind of right in here with the whole decipherable thing, was the bonus. What happens if you can't understand what something says? Maybe because it's too dark. Maybe because it was handwritten and scribbled and you can't understand it. Maybe it's somebody's signature. If you cannot understand it, then what I do is I put the line, let's say it's a signature line. Now, I'm going to give you two things. One, Jose Guzman is the registrar, right? And he has signed this. You can't read this signature. But underneath, it's got a line for his signature, and underneath it is Jose Guzman, right? So I put above, when I'm translating it, I put that line in, and then I put above it in parentheses, signature of Jose Guzman, and paren, right? How about if it's the Secretary of Vital Records, and that name is nowhere on the document, and all it has is the line, and then it says Secretary of Vital Records, but there's a signature above it that you can't read. I'll put parentheses, signature indecipherable, and paren. You can't just leave it out. You can't just see if you can kind of make out what is it. If you can't decipher it, put it down. Parentheses, indecipherable. And that's it. So basically, it's just like I say all along, if you can't figure something out, don't guess. Don't guess. Just tell them that you don't understand. Oh, another thing. If it's something that, for instance, it might have on the birth certificate or let's say you don't have a birth certificate, but you do have a baptismal certificate, and it's got the godmother and the godfather, but it's only got signatures. Well, ask mom if she's still around. Ask an older sibling who might have been there. Your husband might actually know who his godfather and godmother were. You can put in the name of the person if you know who it is. But make sure you know who it is. Make sure you get it right. So there you go. You've got your 10 mistakes plus your little bonus. If you could think of any other mistakes, because I might be missing a few, please stick them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. See you next time.